Welcome to a new episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, once again, Ryan Thomas, bringing you the latest takes from yours truly in regards to our beloved Buffalo Bills. And it's another week, another victory. Very, very happy to hop on this podcast coming off of a win. It's always good to talk about a win, especially when it's a win that is as exciting as the Bills and the Lions. We knew that this game would have everything that it had. It was back and forth, it was a shootout, it was tit for tat, and it was a lot of fun. Of course, this show is sponsored to you guys by 26shirts.com. I really appreciate everything that Del Reed has built as a part of giving back to the community. You buy a shirt, you buy a hoodie, you buy anything this holiday season, of course, to add to your Buffalo Bills wardrobe. Buying it at 26shirts.com, it's going to go to the community. It's going to go to a good cause. It's going to keep the name alive that Buffalo, Western New York, is the city of good neighbors. So 26shirts.com, go to 26shirts.com and get your t-shirt, hoodie, or gift item for the holidays. Still a little bit of time to make that happen. Of course, going to their locations too, that would probably be recommended. I don't know the online situation right now. Might be cutting a little close for your holiday shopping. Of course, as this podcast is pre-recorded tonight, I greatly appreciate those that are tuning into this at 8 o'clock Eastern time on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network. Chime in and fire away some comments. I will get to those comments as this is recorded, as this is streamed, pre-recorded, but I will hop on those comments as this goes live, as I always respond to everybody in the comments section when they fire away their comments. This time I won't be able to click on the comment and do it live because it's pre-recorded, but I hop on and I still respond to your comments because I love chatting about the Buffalo Bills. I'm also going to give my analysis on the Buffalo Sabres at the tail end of this show. It's an 11-game losing streak. It's been rough, pun intended. So the thoughts will be flowing on this podcast tonight. I've been using my voice all day, so if I take a swig of the Poland Spring, my apologies, but I got to keep the fluids in, especially if my voice starts crack-a-lacking. So let's get right to it. Now, this was a shootout. Let's make no mistake about it, but it was a victory. The Buffalo Bills beating the Detroit Lions 48-42. Now, the Buffalo Bills hold an honor that no team has. They hold the honor of being a team in which they've beaten the one seed of the AFC, beaten the one seed of the NFC, both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. And I got to say, out of the two victories, which team, the Lions or the Chiefs, was better? Which game was tougher? Which game forced the Buffalo Bills to rise in terms of their level of play? Was definitely the Detroit Lions. The Lions have been the best team, I'd say, consistently all season long. They were on a 11-game win streak heading into this one with a 12-1 record. They're now 12-2. So this was a massive feather in the cap of Josh Allen. It was a massive feather in the cap of Sean McDermott. It was a massive feather in the cap of the Buffalo Bills that held on to win this one 48-42. They did have to hold on. Detroit kept coming. They were not going to go down easy despite the onslaught offensively that Buffalo definitely put the whooping on the Detroit Lions defense, which is heavily ravaged with injuries, as was our defense, which made me think, fantasy football-wise, do I or don't I start Jared Goff? I did, thank God. I also started Amon-Ra St. Brown, but didn't want to cheer too loudly. Watching the game, didn't want to cheer too loudly when they hooked up for that 66-yard touchdown, but that did definitely help me for fantasy football in the shout out to the Lockport Fantasy Football League, which has been going rolling steady since 2011. So Buffalo Bills get it done, though, 48-42. That's what I'm really excited about. And you know what? Yes, it was another Buffalo shootout. And with a shootout comes the thought process of what makes a shootout a shootout? What do I mean when I say that? Well, this week, Bills Lions, very similar to last week, Bills Rams. Both games featured Buffalo's offense humming. As I've mentioned, this offense has been on fire. But I like to pose a question to the Bills Mafia. What makes this Buffalo Bills offense so special? Going into the season, all the experts, all the analysts, they all said the same thing. None of them tried to stand out, as they normally don't. But they said, how will this offense work without Stephon Diggs? How will Josh Allen do in his first season without Stephon Diggs? There were doubters. There were naysayers. There were, dare I say, haters to the idea that Josh Allen would be A-okay without Stephon Diggs. And furthermore, that the Buffalo Bills offense would not be good enough without Stephon Diggs, that no one else would step up in the absence of Stephon Diggs, despite the fact that Josh Allen is the player that he is, despite the fact that Khalil Shakir was the player that he was last year. He's no different this year. Statistically, he's doing his thing. Once again, despite the fact that Dalton Kincaid was one of the best young tight ends in the game going into this season, coming off of a good rookie year, despite the fact that Kincaid and Knox are two of the best tight ends, maybe on one team in the entire NFL. They didn't take those things into account. They didn't take into account the idea that Brandon Beane would roll up his sleeves a little bit and make a move to help make this offense better by bringing in a savvy, reliable veteran in Amari Cooper that has been good everywhere he's played. So a lot of factors there. Dare I throw it in that Buffalo's offensive line was one of the best offensive lines last season and got better in the offseason, got younger, got more athletic in the offseason. They didn't talk about that. This guy did. The guy that you're looking at, the guy that you're hearing right now, the voice you're hearing right now, that's the guy that talked about that stuff, as well as the kid that they drafted, not just at the wide receiver position in Keon Coleman, but the rookie running back, Ray Davis. What could he provide? Talked about it all summer long. Right in this seat, looking out this window right here, seeing the sunshine. Not much sunshine right now here in Western New York as the sun goes down at about 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we're at a totally different point offensively. Buffalo's offense is so special due in large part to the fact that the largest weapon on this offense is, of course, Josh Allen, but the fact that that weapon can pick a wide variety of options to get the ball to that can be lined up in a lot of different places. Amari Cooper is a well-versed wideout. He can line up out wide, can line up on the inside. What does that mean? Well, he can line up in the slot. He can be underneath. Keon Coleman, can he line up out wide? Can he line up in the slot? Can he be used as a deep ball guy? Yes. We've seen him catch deep balls. We've seen his ability to get yards after catch. It's one of the greatest attributes that any wide receiver can have in any era of football is to catch the football, yes, but to do something with it after the fact. And Keon Coleman has proven that he can do that. Coming off of an injury, he did that and then some in this game. Clutch player. I would put that adjective to Keon Coleman, or that phrase, I should say, to Keon Coleman. Despite being a rookie, he has been a clutch rookie when asked to be for the Buffalo Bills. And it's been great to see his evolution, his confidence, and the confidence of those around him to use him as a piece inside this offense. And of course, Buffalo's 11-3, and they've been 11-3 obviously for a couple days now, but they were without some guys. This has not been a finished product all season long, and yet The one constant, the one constant in this offense is Josh Allen, the most valuable player. I've said it the last 3-4 weeks. I think this is a solid case to make that you got a guy that is a man on fire. Josh Allen is putting up numbers, the likes of which are startling, the likes of which we have not seen only with the greats, only the guys that have climbed the pantheon of the sport, that have raised the Lombardi Trophy, have put up the numbers that Josh Allen is putting up right now. 14 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the last 3 weeks? Something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know he hasn't been sacked. I know he hasn't thrown a pick. I know that Josh Allen has thrown and ran for a lot of touchdowns. And I also know that, yes, fantasy football-wise, no quarterback has had a greater 2-week stretch than Josh Allen for fantasy purposes. 52 points last week, 44 points this week. Incredible numbers from Josh Allen. But going into the stats is one thing, but actually understanding the value of the stats is another. And to me, yes, there's a lot to take away with this offense and what they were able to accomplish and what they were able to do. But defensively, there is a lot to talk about within this Buffalo Bills team. And that's where, I like to illustrate this game as what it is. Josh Allen was on fire, could do no wrong, was making plays left and right. There were plays that he made that got called back that would have even added to the stat sheet that he had of 23 of 34, 362, passing, 2 touchdowns, obviously passing, 2 touchdowns rushing, second straight week in a row that he's done that, and then some. James Cook, 14 carries, 105 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He's got, 12 total on the year. Ty Johnson, the leading receiver in this one, 5 catches for 114 yards. Incredible. Keon Coleman, 1 catch for 64. Khalil Shakir, 6 catches for 39 and a touchdown. Ray Davis also getting in the receiving touchdown column. But I would like to discuss the defense because there's a lot to discuss there in terms of negatives. Defense is on ice skates, and they're not the ice skates that the Sabres are skating on. They're the opposite. They're not the ice skates that the Sabres need to be skating with. It's like the Sabres are trying to play some football out there, and the Bills defense is trying to play a little hockey. They do not look fleet of foot in terms of when they're spread out wide. That's what I've talked about these last few weeks. Buffalo facing an opposing offense that can go 4 wide, 5 wide with a savvy, accurate, pressure, eased quarterback, whether it's Matt Stafford or Jared Goff. Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, they'll be forever linked, due to the trade conducted for both guys. Goff going from LA to Detroit, Stafford going from Detroit to LA, however you want to, look at it. Both guys are very similar. Both guys have the ability to pick apart a defense. Both guys have seen it all in this league and have contributed in massive ways. Stafford's won a Super Bowl. He's responsible for 2 of the best wide receiver seasons, largely of all time, and Calvin Johnson and Cooper Kupp. And Jared Goff has been a revelation as the quarterback of the Detroit Lions. I would go on to say that the trade saved Jared Goff's career, and it certainly helped Matt Stafford's career. So did that trade work for both sides? I think it's a safe assessment to say that it did. But going into this one, I knew that this would be a challenge due to what happened to us defensively against the Rams. Both teams can do the same things. They can both spread you out, both force you to pick who to double in terms of coverage-wise. And those are tough decisions for any team. But they're a tougher decision for a team like the Buffalo Bills defensively, who are ravaged with injuries in the secondary, especially heading into this game against the Detroit Lions. No Rasul Douglas, no Taylor Rapp, no DeMar Hamlin. And everybody has given their assessment of DeMar Hamlin's play, Taylor Rapp's play, Rasul Douglas. I feel like DeMar always has a target on his back because of what happened to him. I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of Bills Mafia say that, oh, this is a sympathy start. It's not. He earned it. He earned it in June. He earned it in July. He earned it in August. There's no better. Trust me. There's no better than him as the starting free safety of the Buffalo Bills. There's no better right now on this roster, including the guy that they brought back to the practice squad, Micah Hyde, because Hyde ain't playing yet. And I don't know if he will. I don't know if that's why they brought him back. We'll see. I'm not, looking at that signing as a definite signing and a definite sign that he's going to be playing a starting role like he was for the last 7-8 years prior to a very tough neck injury. It's not something that you play around with. You play football, but you suffer injuries like that. That's not an injury that you just say, I'll be back. No, it takes something from you. So who's to say that Micah Hyde's a guarantee to play meaningful snaps? I think that'd be a little bit overzealous, a little bit foolish to say that they brought him back to start. Don't know if that's the case. If it is, we'll see, but I don't know if it is, right? So losing Rapp, losing Hamlin, heading into this one, losing Douglas. Rapp and Douglas hurt on the same play last week against the Rams. I knew that this was going to be a challenge. I knew that there was no lead that was safe, especially with these two teams going toe-to-toe with one another. But where I was impressed with Buffalo's defense is, the game script in which Buffalo's offense was so efficient, so fast, so fluid, forced the Lions to throw. But I will say that in the rushing department, Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 carries for 31 yards and a touchdown. That's the rushing stuff, right? Rushing wise for David Montgomery, 5 carries for 4 yards. He did get hurt, which I definitely think changed the outcome of this game drastically because he's one of the best running backs for his style in the league. And with the other guy that's his counterpart, it's Sonic and Knuckles for a reason. But receiving-wise, where the game script kind of helped Buffalo is that it forced the Detroit Lions to throw to the running backs. And that's where they actually did contribute. Jahmyr Gibbs, 5 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. David Montgomery, 4 catches for 31 yards. He had far more receiving yards than he had rushing, 31-4. Sam Laporta, 7 catches, 111 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 14 catches. 14 catches for 193 yards and a touchdown. Jamarcus Ingram, Teron Johnson, Christian Benford. Those 3 guys were feasted on. Were picked on, were feasted on. I'd say more so Ingram than Benford or Johnson, although I did see some catches made on Johnson. But this guy is one of the best wideouts in the game with a very savvy quarterback getting him the football. So I knew that this was going to be a challenge, and it was. But Buffalo got past them. My concern is that these next 3 weeks are matchups, 2 of which against one team in the New England Patriots, that I think Buffalo can kind of be who they are, and they don't have to worry as much because obviously New England is not the team that the Rams are. New England's not the team that the Lions are. But the teams that you're playing in the playoffs, if you are the 2 seed, they can throw too. They have receivers. It's not like teams that are in the playoffs don't have good receivers. So this secondary in particular, they got to get it right. They got to figure this out. It's got to be figured out. It's got to be figured out to a point where they can get through this wild card round, get to the divisional round, get past whoever they play in the divisional round, whether it's the Chiefs or anybody else, get back to the AFC Championship game, more likely than not as the higher seed than the team that they're playing, which means that AFC Championship game would be in Orchard Park, New York, Old Orchard, as Julian Edelman refers to it as. And you could feel really confident about their chances because as of right now, and I'm going to knock on this wooden desk here, they're pretty healthy. They're pretty healthy outside of the injuries that they had kind of announced inactive-wise heading into this one. So my concerns, I think Matt Milano is not the player that he needs to be. I think a lot of that has to do with the injuries that he's suffered these last couple of years. And now he has suffered another injury, a groin injury, which is not something that you just gloss over. It's nagging. It takes time. It's annoying. It's an annoying injury, and it's frustrating for me to say this, but Matt Milano, I think, is only going to continue to get hurt because that's what I've seen these last couple of years, and he's only getting older. You have to look at this game. You have to look at this game as each player has a shelf life. Each one has its own shelf life. Each player plays this game as if it is a business because they understand that it is just as much as anybody. But the fans, they fall in love with players. They want that player that they fall in love with to be here forever. It just does not work that way. Trey White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, who was brought back, as I mentioned, they can tell you that. Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, they were cut in one day after playing for the Buffalo Bills for almost, 2 decades each, at least in the case of Bruce and Andre. Bruce and Andre, they get cut. They go to Washington. Thurman gets cut. He goes to Miami to try to squeeze the juice that's left in South Florida to stick it to the Bills. Don't let anybody tell you different. He would even tell you the same. He was pissed. He was frustrated. And he wanted to allow the Dolphins to squeeze the little juice left that he had and see what happens. Unfortunately, he got hurt his knee, and that was all she wrote. But Bruce and Andre played a couple years with Washington. At least I remember Bruce did. But they weren't what they were. And that is what I'm saying about Matt Milano. I really fear that he is not what he was, and I don't know if he ever will be again. And I think that it's safe to say that if Brandon Beane has made the decisions that he's made over this last offseason with guys like Trey White, I don't know why Bills fans wouldn't think that he'd make the same decision again, if need be, with Matt Milano. And it's a tough thing to say because I really don't want to come off as if I'm disrespecting Matt Milano in any way, shape, or form. I love the guy. He's been a great player for us for the better part of the last 7, 8, 9 years. Drafted as a mid-round guy, but last week against the Detroit Lions was not a good week for him. Prior to the injury, he was not playing well. And you have a younger guy in Dorian Williams who is experienced because he's played for Milano for pretty much the last couple seasons. And I think that he's the next man up. And you could even add to that via the draft. And that's a 2025 discussion, but it's a discussion that I think is impacting the team right now. And it's a discussion that I think that position is so crucial to the teams that they play in the playoffs. They need the second level of the defense to be what it needs to be. Guys that can cover the wideouts, guys that can cover the tight ends, guys that can track the ball in the run game. And I just don't see that version of Matt Milano right now. And I know he's trying to work some things out. Just got hurt again while he's trying to work things out. So it's really tough. The best availability, I've always said this, the best availability is to be available. So that's kind of a Yogi Berra ism. But it's true. The best ability is availability. That's the phrase. The best ability is availability. So, yeah, there's concerns. They've allowed over 40 points, but they've scored over 40 points. They've played two really good teams back to back. They went 1-1, blocked punt aside. Maybe they go 2-0, right? So, a lot to definitely look forward to. Now, shifting gears here, obviously, I think the Bills are going to trounce the New England Patriots. I do want to say, though, that I think the Patriots, if you were to tell me the Jets, Dolphins, or just ask me, if you were to ask me between the Jets, Dolphins, and the Bills, no, pardon me, Jets, Dolphins, and the Patriots, which team has the brightest future? I think it is the Patriots. Now, the Patriots have had a terrible season, don't get me wrong, but I think they're going to clean house of their coaching staff. I think Gerard Mayo was not the right hire. The Patriots promoting from within, from Bill Belichick, it just didn't really make much sense because that era had not won in a couple years. So why promote from within? I think they need to go outside the box. I think next offseason they bring in Mike Vrabel, which is what they should have done. And Mike Vrabel's a good coach. Mike Vrabel can galvanize the troops. Mike Vrabel can work, with less and do more with less. So I would also argue that if the Patriots do that in 25, the best quarterback that Vrabel will have ever worked with is Drake May. I like Drake May a lot. I think that he can be a franchise guy, and he reminds me a lot of Josh Allen, to be quite honest with you. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Josh Allen, but there's a lot of attributes that you see in Drake May that make you think to yourself, okay, I could see why the kid's physical, he's strong, he's got a good arm, he's smart. And there's a lot of skills that he possesses already that are skills that most rookies don't have. And they're skills that you can grow upon. So that is what you look for in a prospect, skills that they already have that I can mold, that I can work with. I liked Bo Nix and Drake May a lot coming out of this draft, as well as Jaden Daniels. You guys know I was not a big Caleb Williams guy. And thus far, there's a lot of factors contributing to the lack of success from Caleb Williams, but I think I was right so far. So that's my kind of preview. Obviously, I think Buffalo is going to beat the Patriots. Give you a score prediction. I am going to go over 40. I'm going to go 41-27. That's my score prediction. 41-27. So I'd like to address the elephant in the room here in regards to the Buffalo Sabres. So I am obviously a diehard Buffalo guy. It's just a big part of my identity. I've made it as such as a part of this podcast. I made it as such even before this podcast. I've always been a Buffalo fan, Bills, Sabres, you name it. And what really bothers me right now more than anything is the fact that you got the tale of two teams. You got two teams that one team is what they are. They're a powerhouse. They are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. And to say that it's great. It's been a long time coming since the Buffalo Bills were the toast of the NFL. They came so close 4 straight years, yet so far, right? And especially losing one by 1 point, that being the first one, and then the 3 that followed after that was just one thing after another with those 4 straight Super Bowls. They could go on and on about why they lost those games, how they lost those games, but is just a collection of things in a team game. You do the same thing with the Buffalo Sabres in 1999. They lost to the Dallas Stars on a controversial goal from Brett Hull, which is still looked at as the most controversial goal in NHL history, at least one of them. So at the very least in Stanley Cup history. So if the height of the sport is the Stanley Cup and it's controversial goal, it determined who won the Stanley Cup, for crying out loud. I'd like to think that it's the most controversial goal ever that should not have counted. Then you go to my prime years as a kid, 2005, 2006, 2007, 05, 06, 06, 07. The Buffalo Sabres, without a shadow of a doubt, were by far the best team in the Eastern Conference. Now, the reality is that they were the best team in the Eastern Conference in 06, 07 by a wide margin record-wise. But the year prior, they weren't supposed to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. They were looked at as an afterthought. And the scary good Buffalo Sabres, nobody thought that they would be scary good until they were scary good, which was what made that season such a Cinderella story, that they could be looked at by Sporting News and the hockey magazines and everything as a basement dwelling franchise coming out of a bankruptcy, not almost bankruptcy, but a bankruptcy that put the ownership in the hands of the commissioner. Gary Bettman at one point was overseeing the Buffalo Sabres while he was trying to field offers from potential, future owners of NHL Buffalo. They didn't know whether the Sabres were going to stick around. And it was a very scary time as a hockey fan here in Buffalo, as a kid here that loved hockey, that loved going to the arena with my dad, and loved the Sabres as much as I do now, if not more. As a kid, you gravitate to sports in a different way. I think that that's a safe nostalgia effect that we all can kind of think of when we first started rooting for team A, B, C, or D. And that was really when I first started to remember, as far back as my memory goes, I should say, the Buffalo Sabres. They were coming off of the lockout, 04-05, and then 05-06 was that next season. And they took the game over. They acclimated to the new rules. Danny Briere, Chris Drury, Brian Campbell, Jay McKee, Ryan Miller took the game over, and they ruled the East. They go to Game 7 against Carolina. They come up short. They then go to 05-06. They start the season off winning 10 straight. They're a freight train. They win 53 games in a single season. They win the President's Trophy, which is the trophy for the best regular season record team in the NHL, and they lose to Ottawa, I believe, in 5 games. If my memory serves me right, if I'm wrong, it was 6. So it could be 5 or 6. I think it was 5. So very confusing, very hard 2 years, and then the team is just blown up. Briere, Drury leave for nothing. They didn't trade those two guys, the captain and the co-captain or alternate or assistant captain, whatever you want to call it. The two best players in the franchise gone for nothing. Drury to the Rangers, Briere to the Flyers. 20 plus years later, they're the GMs of both of those franchises. And 20 plus years later, the Buffalo Sabres are in the midst of a 13-year, going on 14-year playoff drought with superstar expectations littered throughout this, a tank or two in this drought, and bringing back a legend in Coach Lindy Ruff, and yet the Sabres cannot get out of their own way. They are a terrible team at this time. When I say they're a terrible team, there are players on this team that I really feel for. Number one, Alex Tuch, a true Buffalo guy, born and raised in Syracuse, grew up wearing a Tim Connolly Sabres red jersey, goat head jersey, loves this team, loves this city, and is one of the few guys that I can say that about that's played here in the last 15, 20, 30 years that I've been around, plus pushing 33 here. But Alex Tuch is a special guy. He's a special guy. He's a special player, one of the top players in NHL takeaways. Tage Thompson is a tower of a man, streaking down the center ice as a centerman in this league. Very hard to game plan for. And, of course, the prodigy, or shall I say defensive guru himself, Rasmus Dahlin. And Dahlin took a couple years to get to the level that he is at now. But he's been hurt. He's been out of the lineup for the last few games, and I think that it's played a huge part in this losing streak. I do. Rasmus Dahlin is that talented. He's that good. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. It's been years since I've talked about a goalie and as glowing a light as Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And the Sabres have had good goalies. Robin Lehner was not terrible. Linus Ullmark. Is he terrible now? No, he's not. But it's another story for another day. UPL has blossomed into a great goalie. One of the better young goalies in this league, but the defense is not holding their end of the bargain. They're allowing them to face way too many shots. They're not blocking shots. They're not staying in front of the net. They're not staying on their guy. They're gravitating 2-on-1, gravitating 3-on-1. So the guy just passes it back to the guy that's now uncovered, and he takes an empty shot at the net that is 1-on-1 with UPL. Sounds so simple, and that's not the only problem, of course, but this team has been bad for so long as I have no doubt in my mind that this is a great town for football and hockey. But it pains me that kids my age now, we can remember when they were great. We can remember those teams that I mentioned. But the kids that were my age then, I guess I should say the kids that are like 13, 14, 15 now, they have no recollection of the Sabres being anything because they've been in a playoff drought for 13 going on 14 years. And it's the same reality that I faced for a long time as a Buffalo Bills fan. When the Bills were going through their drought, Dad, my grandfather, they tell me, wow, the Bills, man, they were so good. At one point, they got this close, yet this far, but they were really good. Go watch them on YouTube. That's all these kids can have as far as a taste of the Sabres being great. Going back to YouTube from 05, 06, 06, 07, and this team has been a joke the last 13 years. And I don't know, as I sit here in the last 8 or 9 years since I've been doing this podcast, I always feel like the best part of this is that I can give an answer. I can give a resolution, a plan forward for the Sabres. I don't know what that is right now. I don't know what that is. I don't have one because they've done everything. They've tanked for young players, for high picks. They got Jack Eichel. How'd that work out? They traded for Ryan O'Reilly moments after they drafted Jack Eichel. How'd that work out? They had Sam Reinhart. How did that work out? And how is it working out for those guys now? How is it working out for Sam Reinhart, Jack Eichel, Ryan O'Reilly, Linus Ullmark, Brandon Montour, Evan Rodriguez, all these former Sabres littered throughout the league on great teams, making an impact with the team that they're playing for. I think the biggest problem with the Buffalo Sabres right now is what plagued the Buffalo Bills. And it's a word that is so cliche, I almost throw up every time I think it in terms of sports, but it's so true. Culture. A culture is the biggest factor in what can turn a situation around or what can allow it to remain the same, for better or for worse. And right now, the culture of the Sabres is a losing culture. There's not one player on this team really that understands what it means to be successful in the National Hockey League. There is only one former Sabre in the National Hockey League that played in a playoff game for the Buffalo Sabres. One active player in the entire National Hockey League that remembers what it's like to put on a Buffalo Sabres jersey and play a playoff game, and that is Tyler Myers. He has been off the team for 10 years. 8 years, something like that. 8, 9 years maybe. Traded away for Evander Kane, another former Buffalo Sabre that was jettisoned, that was too much of this or too much of that, just like all the other guys I mentioned. And a lot of this, guys, a lot of this has to do with the media. The media in Buffalo, GR, all of it. They are partially responsible for this disaster. Make no mistake about it. They have chewed up and spit out so many players that have played in blue and gold, red and black, navy and gold, whatever you want to call it, royal blue and gold, whatever you want to call it, whatever version of the Sabres that we've seen the last 13 years, I have seen it all. I've lived it, and I've heard it. I remember when Ryan O'Reilly said that he was losing his passion for the game. I'll get rid of that guy rather than let's question what he's actually talking about. Let's actually listen to why he might be losing his love of the game. Let's actually hear out a player that was looked at as a captain-like player in this league, was a captain at a high level in Colorado, and was a highly sought-after talent that Buffalo was able to recruit. Coming off of what? Drafting Jack Eichel? That was all we had at that time. Moments after they drafted Jack Eichel, that trade was announced on draft day. So that trade was signed, sealed, and delivered. Ryan O'Reilly wanted to go to a team that had a top player on it like Jack Eichel. Wanted to work hard. Wanted to show that he had pride in playing here. And Jack was an 18-year-old captain, was an immature kid, made mistakes on and off the ice. He would admit it. You had coaches from Phil Housley, Ralph Kruger, firing Lindy Ruff, promoting Ron Rolston, who had done nothing in this league to get the opportunity to be the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres, had only had accomplishments at the minor league level. Terry Pegula and the Pegula family have been a blessing to this community. They have done a lot for this community. And I have read far more negativity about the Pegulas than I have read positivity. But there are mistakes that they've made. There is mistakes that they've made. And I think that they would even be more than willing to tell it. But I'm not going to put 13 years of bad coaching, immaturity, bad play solely on one person that is a businessman that runs the team. It's just weird to me. Maybe he's been too involved in decisions. That's another talking point. Maybe he has such a love for the Buffalo Sabres that he doesn't want to let go day-to-day oversight of the team. That's a conversation. But to say sell the team, I will never say that. I will never say that. Because that just spits on the jersey, the logo, the crest, what it means to be a Buffalo Sabres fan. I would never say that ever. I would never say, as a part of my take on this show, sell the team. That is ridiculous. And it's disgusting. And I've been reading a lot of it, and I'm ashamed to have read it. I'm ashamed for the people that have written it. Because it's not going to happen. First off, they're not going to get sold. He has no interest in selling. He only has interest in trying to get this team to win. He's done nothing but show that. He's shown in a lot of moments some bad decisions. But what did he do when he first bought the team? Did he spend money? Did he go out and spend money? Yes, he did. Was it on some of the wrong guys? Yes, it was. Did he think that tanking would put the team in the best position for their future? Yes, he did. Was he wrong about that? No, he was not. Did the result not meet what he thought? Correct. Was he supposed to look through a crystal ball and shake it and know that Jack Eichel was an immature jackass? Was he supposed to know that they weren't going to get McDavid in this freaky, foolish, ridiculous NHL draft lottery that only the NBA has? Pause. I don't get it. I would be more than willing to admit that Terry Pegula has made a lot of mistakes as the owner of the Buffalo Sabres. Letting Pat LaFontaine, all-time great Buffalo Sabre, come on board, and letting Tim Murray trade Ryan Miller and Steve Ott for a pack of, pucks, basically, just for Pat LaFontaine to walk out the door with a non-disclosure agreement and not tell the world why he quit. Why Pat LaFontaine quit, somebody that never quit. Ever until that moment. That's when the beginning of this shit show started. Terry had nothing to do with 0506. Terry had nothing to do with 0607. Terry had everything to do with that, as well as a guy that he eventually fired, Tim Murray, shortly thereafter, who completely gutted this team. One GM guts the team that Darcy Regier built. The next GM tries to build the team back up in the way that Darcy Regier did, makes a few mistakes here and there, is fired during a COVID year in Jason Bottrill, and then Kevin Adams, a guy that had no executive experience, is brought on as the new general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. He ran the Buffalo Junior Sabres, a kids hockey team, and was put in the position of being a National Hockey League GM. You expected this to work. That's the criticism. But sell the team? No, that is not something that you'll ever hear from me. That's a coward's way out, selling the team. That's not what Buffalo people should want, ever. We should want the Bills, we should want the Sabres, we should want the Bandits, we should want the Bisons to all do really well as a part of this community. Losing 11 straight games is tough. Wondering what's next is even tougher. Knowing the answer to how you can turn this around is even tougher. You just brought back Lindy Ruff. He's trying to get a bunch of kids to play hockey the way that he wants them to play. It's got to be rough for Lindy Ruff. So there you have it. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. That was a hell of a show. 47 minutes. I did not think I'd go that long tonight, but I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I wanted to give you guys everything and then some. Hopefully I did that. And, of course, on to the Patriots next week and on to hoping and praying that this losing streak from the Buffalo Sabres ends soon. Take care, and I'll see you guys next week. Actually, I won't see you guys next week. It's Christmas. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Merry Christmas, everybody.